Welcome to the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube. This is our Awakening Together weekly gathering. Each and every week we have a different minister who speaks. If you'd like to attend our services live, please visit our website awakening-together.org. Click on Online Sanctuary on the main menu. Then, How to Enter the Sanctuary. Our services are held Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary.
Thank you, Sina. Hey, everybody. Nice to see ya. Welcome to our Sunday gathering. We're going to go over our purpose at Awakening Together, and then highlight a core value that we'll be kind of focusing in on this morning. So, our purpose is we are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self, and within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And I am highlighting our core value. We have 5 core values. And I am going to highlight number 3 this morning, which is that we accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are, which does often include the belief in time itself. So that's kind of what we're going to chat a little bit about today. And now let's pray. And I am going to use the prayer out of Way of Mastery, which is also what our reading will be from. And this is out of the lesson, Birthing the Mind of Christ. And I use this prayer usually when I do readings out of here. So please join me. I invite you just to settle in. Feel the gratitude for us being together. I feel it this morning. Just grateful. May Christ alone dwell within and as this creation I once thought of as myself. May Christ alone inform each thought and each breath and each choice. May love direct each step. May love transform this journey through time, that in time, we may come to know the reality of eternity, the sanctity of peace, the holiness of intimacy, and the joy of the Father's love prior to every breath, and indeed, even prior to every thought that arises within the mind. Amen. Okay, and we are going to have our reading today. Miss Rhoda is going to do that for us. I appreciate her so much reading for me today. We're going to read out of, once again, Way of Mastery, Lesson 14. It is the wise use of time. We're going to do, it's kind of lengthy. That's just kind of how this book rolls. And then we'll read the opening section and then through the section called Your Joy is Found in Extending Your Treasure. So Rhoda, it's all yours.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for inviting me to read this today. As Kelly said, we're reading from Lesson 14, The Wise Use of Time. If you have the book and you want to join, we're starting on page 169. We trust that this moment finds you willing to be holy where you are. We would trust then that in this moment, you are willing to assume responsibility for the choices you have made, the choices that have literally created the environment that you are experiencing in this moment. The chair in which you sit, the walls around you, the things that hang upon the walls, the individuals with whom you find yourself in close proximity, the individuals with whom you find yourself in relationship, the individuals with whom you work, those with whom you play, and those with whom you share. We would trust that this moment finds you, the holy child of God, at play in the kingdom of Christ. If not, if you are aware within yourself, well, that's not quite the perspective from which I was beginning my reading of this lesson. I thought I was going to sit down and listen to Christ. If there be some element, some touch, or some trace within you of that perspective, then pause right now. As you do so, abide by yourself and take several deep breaths if you wish. Go back to the 5-minute exercise of simply being the presence of Christ. For well do we perceive that many of you have already forgotten that the exercise exists. At the end of the 5 minutes, simply remind yourself that what is true always is always true. Only love is real. And what is real cannot be threatened by what does not truly exist. In each moment in which your perceptions are less than flowing from the remembrance of who you are, you have been in unreality. When you notice this, take the time and use it constructively by returning to the truth. Pause in your reading if you must. We will be going nowhere and return in 5 minutes. The way of transformation is simple. For the way of efforting one's way into the kingdom of heaven cannot flow from the guidance of the Holy Spirit. For where there is effort, there is a separate will, called the ego, that believes itself to be, and would love to convince you of this, small, powerless, and knows that it is pervaded by fear. Love requires no effort, only the willingness necessary to allow it to flow from the depth of your being through you, that it might be extended throughout creation. Beloved friends, the way of transformation requires only that you extend to yourself the willingness necessary to put into practice using time differently. No, it does not mean that you have to quit your job and go live in a little hut on top of a mountain somewhere. You would not necessarily use time differently by doing so. It does not require that you begin with the simple recognition. It does require that you begin with the simple recognition that there can be no set of perceived circumstances that truly have the power to separate you from your God. No set of circumstances, no set of relationships, not the weather, not the amount of money that you are allowing yourself to receive for the expenditure of your time. There is nothing in the world that has the power to separate you from your God. You are the one who holds dominion over all things. What does this idea of dominion mean? It means that you are the one who is the source of the power that can choose how you will see what is around you and how you will perceive it, and what you will believe most about it. You are the one with the power to penetrate the illusory veil of the world and see the heart, the essence, the truth, the Christ child in everything. A blade of grass, the cry of a child, the barking of a dog, or the coming of the mail with the bills. Therefore, the way of transformation does not require you to change your circumstance. It merely requires that you change your attitude toward them by recognizing that they are harmless, by recognizing that you have called all things to yourself. There are many that would teach that you must sit around and ponder, why did you find this and why you did that? I say unto you, all that is required to begin is the willingness to accept that in the great mystery of consciousness, you are the power and the source for all that you think, all that you see, all that you feel, and all that you would be and do. You abide in that freedom constantly. The way of transformation then rests simply on that. How will I decide to use my time? Finding myself here in this moment, can I remember that I am free to see things differently? I am free to look lovingly upon the world. I do not need to wait for something outside myself to create a stimulus that elicits a loving response. You do not need to wait for your mate to come and give you a hug that you want so much. You do not need to wait until your mother calls you on the phone and begs for your forgiveness for how cruel she treated you when you were growing up. You do not need to wait until the current president is no longer in the White House. You do not need to wait for the contest that comes in the mail to make you the winner that brings you millions of dollars. You do not need to wait for that to happen. Right now, you are the one that is free. But perhaps you have imprisoned yourself by waiting for love to show up outside of you to trigger a response within you. When you feel it or recognize it, so that finally you feel loving. Those that know aloneness are not limited in extending love. And those that know loneliness yet retain the power to make the decision to love. It can never be taken from you. Here is a simple exercise that we wish to give you. When next you find yourself alone, perhaps feeling just a little lonely, and you notice that the mind is spinning with thoughts, and you're feeling perhaps just a little weak and out of sorts, pick up your telephone book or Google. Take 3 deep breaths. And with each breath, say to yourself, in reality, I remain as I am created to be. I am the holy child of God. Then merely open the phone book. Place your hand on one of the pages with the many names and numbers, and just feel your way to a specific name and number. You will know the feeling. Then, for the fun of it, call that person. And when they answer the phone, merely say, I'm not here to sell you anything. I just need about 15 seconds of your time. I know you've never met me, but I was just sitting in my chair, remembering that the truth is true always. And I'm calling to remind you that you are loved by God. You've never failed. You've never done anything wrong. You remain pure and innocent even now. And I just wanted to give my blessings to you. Have a nice day. Goodbye. For you see, the world in which you live has but one purpose. It is the same purpose that all dimensions of creation have, to be the extension of the Father's love. For that is what creation is. And then to extend that love from the world, from that dimension. Each and every one of you has but one treasure, only one treasure. It is not your child. It is not your spouse. It is not the new car in the garage. Your treasure is your reality as the unlimited, holy, and only begotten child of God. You are a field of consciousness through which the Father would extend himself. Now, the next section, Your Joy is Found in Extending Your Treasure, is the title. This means that if this is your only treasure, your greatest joy will be discovered as you cultivate within yourself the habits of mind, the habits of body, the habits of choice that begin to align what you think, what you see, and what you do with the truth that is true always. For your joy will be found as you recognize that you exist to extend your treasure. As you do so, you immediately add to your Father's treasure, whose only will is to extend that which he is, forever, unbounded, unlimited. And God is but love. The grand thing about love is this: it does not require any set of conditions to exist before it does. How is this different than some of the things you experience in life? As a body, there are certain conditions that must exist before the body can be satiated with food or water. There must be certain conditions that are met before the body stops shivering against the cold. Your world is based on the topsy-turvy perception that conditions must be met before there can be a choice for peace instead of war, for forgiveness instead of judgment, for love instead of fear. Therefore, you think, when conditions outside of me change, then I'll make the choice for love. I've often said that the world is merely the reflection of the insane choice to deny love and to be devoted to fear. The world is diametrically opposed to the truth of the kingdom. The world is the opposite of reality. The way of transformation rests on the complete reversal of the thought system you have learned in the world. But that thought system is not merely the practice of new ideas repeated ad nauseum in the mind. That reversal of the thought must permeate the entire field of the body-mind, which is nothing more than the field of your consciousness, so that you know that change has occurred. So when you are in any set of circumstances that once seemed to elicit judgment or fear or anger or hurt or sadness, you recognize, my goodness, my whole body feels different. I just feel like being loving. I feel totally safe. What's the big deal here? Oh, I remember when these kinds of circumstances would have elicited sadness or hurt or fear or anger. And now I just think it's a beautiful place to be, because here I can extend the love of Christ. Wow, what a joy. What a treasure. Thank God I have this moment in which I can be the blessing that blesses this world. What is the world? If not each moment of relationship in which you find yourself? Beloved friends, the use of time is pivotal. The use of time determines at all levels what you will experience in your tomorrows. Long after the body ceases to be the teaching and learning device that you are most attached to, long after the body dies, you will indeed be continually stepping into your tomorrows. For you are that sunbeam sent forth from the sun, from the mind of God, and that light never stops traveling. To use a spatial term, you will never cease to create. You will never cease to experience. The only choice you ever have is this. Will I assume responsibility for doing whatever I must do to eradicate every misperception, every obstacle to the presence of love, every limited belief I have ever learned about anyone or anything, especially about myself? When will I choose to assume responsibility for cultivating that perfect remembrance that I and my Father are one, so that I can perceive the real world, the reality that shines through everything? That is the reality that is present in the very material that makes up the chair in which you are sitting. The reality literally pervades the body that you think is so dense and hard. Or perhaps, if you have not been exercising, it is also a little soft. The point is, there is nothing that you see that is not pervaded by the perfect radiance of God's holy presence. Nothing. A stone, a leaf, a piece of paper blown by the wind, even the shouting of fear and anger from anyone, yet contains within it, if you would receive it, the perfect love of God. For your Father does not ever recoil or withdraw from the unlimited and perfect extension of himself. And God is but love. If you did not abide wholly in that love in this moment, you would immediately cease to exist. I do not just mean die. I mean literally cease to exist. There would be no trace of thought or memory in any mind of you. It is only because love is that you are. This is why I once said, of myself, I can do nothing, but my Father, through me, does these things. I did not say, I learned of my Father, and now I will be the maker and doer. I acknowledged my complete helplessness, my complete dependency. I eradicated any perception that I was a self separate from God. I stopped giving authority to the tiny little gnat shouting in the vastness of space. My will be done. As you sit in your chair in this moment, hopefully with your transformational journal in your lap and the pen you have purchased for only this purpose, remember this. You are wholly dependent at all times on the pervasive reality of love, which has given you existence out of its desire to extend its treasure, joy. This is the reality of who you are in this moment. You are as the waves that has risen from the ocean of God's perfect and holy love. You could not for a moment be cut off from it. Yes, tomorrow things will change. Yes, there will be a point when the body breaks down and dies. Yes, there will be a moment in which all that you see before you will be there no longer. For all things that arise in time end in time. That is the way it is. Yet you are free to cultivate the ability to perceive the real world, to see, to know, to feel, to taste, to be, to extend that which is real. Only love meets that definition. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rhoda. That was beautifully read. And I'm just grateful. I know it was long, and I find myself with some readings being fidgety. But there's something about this particular reading that allows me just to sit still. And I got teary at a couple points when we are reminded that we are just love. And that is the only point, right? Get pretty distracted by a lot of other things, but nothing like just sitting with the truth. So thank you very much. All right, so I was reminded of a video that was in 500 Days. It was a Leo Gura, I believe that's how I pronounce his name, video from Actualized.org. And I believe the name of the video is Distraction, Ego's Favorite Defense Mechanism. And he states in that video that life itself is a distraction. And he makes a statement that to win the game, and he speaks that the game of life is to remain distracted so we'd never discover or remember who we are in reality. So to win the game, the ego just needs to stall out the clock. And I just thought that was such an incredible statement, that that's what the ego is, trying to do is just end time, right? Just end time as the body dies, and we believe that who we are goes when the body goes, that the ego just needs to, keep us pretty busy up until that point in time. And then, quote, it wins, right? Stalling the clock. And that, of course, is a defense mechanism. And it's, predicated on the idea that we are these individual personalities separated from God. And I believe that the reading today is helpful in demonstrating that the wisest use of time will always be to undo that perception. That's the wisest use of any time we can engage in, is to undo the idea that we are individual, separate from God and separate from love. And I think there was probably a period of time for me where I thought it was kind of what the reading hit on was this idea that it was about circumstances, right? It was about how we spent time in the tasks that we engage in. So I thought that was probably pretty important, that I spent time in the classroom instead of on a bar stool, right? So when I got sober, I decided to go to college. And I thought that was a wiser use of time. And, other issues of, thinking that I just needed to limit my time with, we often talk in here about, getting on a good binge with a Netflix show and, spending that time watching episode after episode after episode, drama. So at one time I thought, a wiser use of my time is not to spend it watching that, but, spend it reading spiritual literature, or spend it journaling, or spend it meditating. So I had these judgments of how it was that I was spending my time. And none of this is coming really from anybody, right? This is just this dialogue that I have set up within myself that says this is how you should spend time, and this is how you, the things that you should avoid. And recently, I think, and this time reading through this, some light bulbs have gone on for me, and it will. And I often think this, when I'm teaching in a class or doing a homily, I'm like, I'm always preaching to the choir, and I know that, there's nothing new under the sun. There's no new information. So I often feel like, well, this is kind of elementary. But when it's a light bulb for me, I need to share it in order to reinforce that, right? Because things can, I could have incredible revelations and they will be gone within a moment's time, because that's the veil, the cloud that comes over, right? So this time through, the light bulb for me has been not necessarily even to judge how I might be spending my time, but it is more about how am I in that moment. It is more about what quality am I bringing to, even if it is binging on Netflix, right? Even if it is listening to audiobooks, right, for entertainment, for some downtime. Even if it is having a disagreement with somebody, right, that my mind would judge as not being a spiritual approach to things. If I can learn to use time in that moment to become more observant of the energy that's within me in that moment, then that is the wiser use of time, right? It is just about how I am going to be, as opposed to what I am going to be doing. And this is, a bit of a, like I said, it's a bit of a revelation for me, because, and it frees me up. It frees me up from the litany of judgments about how I am spending my time. And I did have periods of time, and I still do. I work full time, and I am unable to spend as much time in the sanctuary as I'd like, listening and hooking up with friends and, doing that stuff. And it was something I certainly had to spend some time looking at, because I suffered this incredible amount of fear of missing out, right? That FOMO, right? Something's going to happen and I'm going to miss it, right? The enlightening strike of the lightning strike is going to hit everybody in the Zoom room at that point in time, and I will have missed it, right? So what I found is when I had that fear, then I would come into the sanctuary, and it wouldn't matter how much time I spent in the sanctuary. It wouldn't matter, if it was the clearest, most concise training ever to be presented in the sanctuary. My head would be so loud just with fear that I would not hear it and receive it anyway, right? So learning how to come, trying to spend my time learning more how to come with an empty mind, as opposed with an idea of what somebody's going to share, etc., has been helpful to me. So we want to, there was another section from here that I wanted to. So the way of transformation then rests simply on this. How will I decide to use my time? And instead of seeing that as tasks, what I see that is, how will I decide to use my attention? That is what it has turned to. Does not matter what it is that I'm doing, what task I'm doing. It is how am I attending to that task? What are the feelings involved in that? Where is the contraction? Where is the buzz in my head? Those are the kinds of things that I can bring to every interaction that I have with people, right? And my go-to is to disconnect, right, from reality, to disconnect from the moment. And that is how my ego has used time. I was reminded, I'm going to give just a little bit of her story, of my personal history. As a child, growing up in a pretty dysfunctional family, right? I grew up with active alcoholism. And as a result of that, really fine-tuned some coping skills. And the biggest one was I would go when my mom was on a tirade, and we had a small house, right? So, I mean, you could hear every comment she made, and it was usually a rage, and it was a judgment of everybody, and lots of threats, self-harm threats, all that kind of stuff. And so one of my coping mechanisms was to retreat to my room, and I could close my eyes and conjure up these stories in my head that would just transport me away. And I could do that to the point of not even hearing what was going on out in the living room. And because it was too frightening to be in that moment, right? Having the parent that you kind of look to for some safety, to be that out of control, right? So I just created these very safe places in this, we called it La La Land is how I eventually named it, right? And the bad part of that is that eventually I learned that even going out into the world, like at school or in social interactions, I could do that same thing, right? People right in front of me, and I could check out, right? Because I didn't, I was awkward. I did not know how to speak, how to interact. I did not know how to be, because I had spent my early childhood completely disconnected, right? So I could bring this same coping mechanism along with me, right? So always had, a fantasy going on in my head, and it usually did revolve. I mean, it was usually around and I've shared this in here many times, a Prince Charming coming in, swooping down and saving me from the whole damn thing, right? Taking me out of that house. And so I just carried this truly an alternate universe around with me everywhere I went. And then discovered alcohol, right? Alcohol does that very well as well. Certainly in a social setting, that is the primary reason why I used alcohol. And so I continued that up probably until the age of 23, 24. I mean, I was still engaging in these bailing, these just disconnecting from reality situations. And then got sober, and all of a sudden went, holy shit, right? I mean, my God, I have not interacted with human beings much my entire life. They've been in front of me, but I've never known how to really engage and do that thing. And so the alcohol goes away, and thank goodness, the spiritual approach to things dawns upon this mind and starts turning me back, right? But it has been quite the journey to be willing, more than anything else, to be willing to engage in reality. It's relative reality, right? It comes from, it's in stages, right? So early on, I had this fantasy life that was real to no one but myself. And then come to relative, reality, which is still the illusion, but it still has a little bit of interaction with, real people, and trying to share my experiences as best I can, trying to engage in some depth of conversation. And that has been a very important piece for me on this journey, is just showing up, and I really am so blessed and grateful for Awakening Together, because the tools that I have received here and the practices have allowed me to stay in the room, so to speak, when things get challenging for me. Because I still, it's if I get triggered by something that I just think, oh, that's pretty frightening, still pretty easy for me to wall off and just not engage and hide. And what I am doing now is, once again, just trying to use that time a little wiser by remaining in the room, remaining in my body, remaining there with the heart that's going like this, with the, I can feel the pulse right here. And I'm pretty sure people can see it sometimes just popping out of my neck. Sitting with the flush coming over, the hot flash, the rage, right? Just feeling that stuff. And I would never have thought that was a, quote, spiritual way to spend my time. It still kind of goes against everything that I thought was, quote, spiritual. And so discovering that the wise use of time is just the most honest use of time has been certainly pretty helpful for me. And I have one other thing that I thought was kind of interesting that came to me this morning was I have been coming off a medication that I've needed for a while and no longer need, but it is kind of a painful process of coming off of it. And so my sleep is like just really crazy. And I got a sleep app that's supposed to help me with that, right? So, I mean, it's just like a lot of data. It's kind of freaky because it's like somebody comes into your room, they do, in the form of a phone, and has a recorder, and it tracks everything that goes on with me in the course of the night. Snoring, which I would have sworn I was not a snorer. Now I do have proof that I am a snorer. That's very hard to accept. Sleep talking, just restlessness, all that kind of stuff. So it takes data for a whole week, and then it gives it back to you and gives you some guidance on how to best do things. And it gives you a percentage of your quality of sleep. And so once again, it's just more data, and it's, danger zone, right? Because then you start judging yourself. All right, God, now I can't, and you don't have any damn control over it, right? So it's like, oh, I got bad sleep quality. So that's great to know, And then I started thinking this morning, I'm like, what if eventually with artificial intelligence and as smart as phones are becoming, and pretty soon maybe we'll have an app that will give us our interaction quality, right? Our mindfulness quality. And we just have to carry the app around, right? And then we have these interactions and we go back to the app and it says, a little arrogant in that interaction there, or a little judgmental there. Or it says, oh, your fear is off the charts. And then we wouldn't have to do the work, right? The app could do that for us. But what I've discovered is that seems to be my job, which is I'm up for the task these days. So I'm grateful for that. So I guess that's all I have to say. And once again, the reading was pretty self-explanatory, and I just kind of added a little bit of stuff that spoke to me the most. And I'm just grateful that we had this time together, of course. And I'm grateful that I'm grateful that I can hear the truth. I can't hold to it all the time, right? I mean, that's why I'm still here. That's why I keep coming back, because I can't hold to it all the time. But I think I've gotten closer than I used to be. And I thank you guys for that. My heart is bursting. It was very funny. I've always been a little bit, nervous about this, as I always share that, right? And last night it was very strange, because I used to have, I would feel that fear and that panic, and I would just breathe through it. And I've gotten a little bit better at that over the course of time. But last night I was excited. I was joyful. I was excited to be here with you guys and doing this thing. And that was a beautiful, beautiful experience for me. So, we just keep suiting up and showing up, and that's what we do. So I am going to have Sina play our contemplation song, and then we'll come back. And if anyone wants to share a little bit about their use of time, that would be awesome. Thank you. Love you. Thanks, Sina. And I believe that Sina also put probably a link in the chat that this is a nice time to donate if you feel called to do that, to Awakening Together. That's how we function. All right. So does anybody have anything that they would like to share? We have a little bit of time.
Yeah, just thought I'd share, I think what I really picked up from what you're saying today is the practice that I started out with this morning. Woke up not feeling great, little head thing going on here, not sure what it is. And, stuffed up and all that. And all I could think to do every time I woke up this morning, and I wake up, go back to sleep, wake up, go back to sleep, was really focus on rest, accept, and trust. Rest the mind. The value of that, I'm just beginning to understand. It's anything is acceptable when we don't listen to that little voice in our head. I mean, anything within reason. I'm sure there's a few experiences I wouldn't want to have, but it's this, oh, it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel like this. This should not be happening. Oh my God, what are you thinking about now? And you're right. You just go off, you might have gone off and, to what you called La La Land, and someone else may go off to Ego Land, right? And then that accepting that accepting portion of it, it's like, okay, this is what's going on right now. This is how I feel. All right. Accept that without judgment. And then the trust that it's a healing. So that's starting to really sink in for me more, I hope. And at least I'm practicing it more. And I think that goes right in line with what you're saying, Kelly. It's just being in the moment, aware of the moment, but not judging the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thank you for that reminder today. So thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. Shauna?
Yes, thank you, Reverend Kelly. I just want to celebrate that you said you were excited to be here instead of scared poopless, because that is a demonstration that you're not listening to that self-will voice as much anymore. You've lost interest in it. Yes. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for being here with us. And I loved the reading. Some of the highlights from what you said is, I loved your story about creating a completely different place, safe place to go in your mind. And I think, I know I do that. I was going to say everybody does that, but I don't know that. What I know is my experience was I did that too. In fact, I specifically remember a time when I was a little girl, when I was telling someone about my world, and they went, "Oh my God, that's completely opposite of what I think about the world." And I thought, oh, look at that. People have different points of view. And I think it's just an amazing attribute this mind has to create a place that's safe until we don't need that anymore. I just think that's an amazing thing. And I love how you said it was a willingness to choose again and to engage in life as it is. That's what I'm trying to live also. And again, I don't do it perfectly. There is no doing that perfectly, but surrendering to each moment's beauty and awe is what I'm just returning to over and over again. And using the tools, like John said, the rest, accept, and trust is just a major tool in my toolbox. So thank you for expressing that, John. And then the wisest use of time is, for me, observing my mind without judgment. Am I rejecting what's here right now? And can I notice that and observing that? I mean, is that not most beautiful? And observing it, then I can take responsibility, as the way of mastery talked about. I can take responsibility for every false belief that I am giving attention to. And that's without judgment. That's where I can turn it around. That's where I can live from what is right now. So thank you so much for your beautiful message, and Rhoda, for your reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, I love that reminder about the responsibility, right? That we are the creator and we can take back the responsibility of that instead of shirking it and blaming and doing all that jazz. So awesome. All right, I think we have come to the end of our time, and I'm going to have Sina play our closing song. All these songs, most of the songs that I bring to the sanctuary are, I can remember when I first heard them. They're usually those songs that are in my, in my heart space, right? And this one was on the radio with my mom, and I'm, very, very young. And we're driving in our Ford Falcon, and she was singing to this song. And so I thought I would share that today, because I did share some stuff about my mother that was a little crazy. And I just, want to share that relationship is beautiful today. It is very healed. She has recovered, and, I'm very grateful for that too. So we'll close with that. That's all. Thanks. Love y'all.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.